You're watching AdoramaTV.
Hey everybody, welcome to this week's AdoramaTV. We're going to be talking this week about light meters, specifically Sekonic Light Meters. I've been using these guys for years. I really love them, and I want to tell you why I love them so much. So we're going to be talking about two light meters, and you've seen these in tons of videos that I've made. This is the Sekonic L358, and this is the Sekonic L758DR. And I'm sure if you watched any of the videos in the past, you've seen both of these guys over and over. Well, let me tell you what I love about them. They both do some things and have a lot of things in common. So I'm going to start talking about those first. The first thing is they share a bunch of modes in common. So they both have ambient light metering, so you can meter ambient light for your scenic photographers and non-strobe people. And then all of them have, or both of them have, two different studio metering modes built in by their default. One allows you to shoot without a sync cable. You can push your metering button and it will wait up to 90 seconds for the flash to fire. The other one is to actually plug in a sync cable to your light meter, and that way you can trigger your studio strobes. Now there's an optional little module that you can plug in here, and this is Sekonic Module 32. And what it does is it allows you to trigger Pocket Wizard radios from right within your light meter. And when you plug this into your light meter, what that allows you to do then is it gives you another mode, and that is wireless triggering mode. So then when you push your metering button, it triggers your Pocket Wizard radios and fires your strobes. And so that's a really nice module to get, and I highly recommend it because you can get it for less money when you buy it at the same time as you buy your meter than if you buy it later on and add it on to your light meter. So the other thing that these guys have in common is their ability to have two different ISO settings. And so you can set ISO 1 to something like 200, ISO 2 to something like 800, and so if you're shooting with two different cameras or two different film stocks, you're able to easily go between those without having to re-meter every time. So you can just meter once and look and say, well, what is this for camera 1 and camera 2? So two different ISO values. They also both allow you to do some exposure compensation, and that allows you to make sure that your meter is matched to your camera. So if you're consistently seeing something is overexposed a little bit, well, you can go in here and you can change your exposure compensation in 10th stop increments to make sure that your meter matches your camera exactly. Now there's a better way to do it with the 758, but we'll get to that in a second. So they also have an EV scale, an aperture value scale at the bottom that allows you to sort of look and see exactly where you are. There's some memory modes, so you can do some averaging. You can tell the difference between two lights using a Delta EV mode. And look at Digital Photography 101. We're making some videos to show you some of these advanced features of these light meters. But it allows you to do light ratios and things very, very quickly just by using the built-in calculations on your light meter. Now let's talk about, and by the way, this guy is the 358. It's about just over $300 for this meter. This meter here, the 758, is about $570. So this one's a little bit more expensive. But let me tell you what this one does that sets it apart from all other light meters that I've seen. The big advantage is this light meter allows you to use some software on your computer to do camera profiling. And not just camera profiling, but camera system profiling, meaning your camera body and a lens. So a 24 to 70 lens is going to behave differently than a 70 to 200 or a 300 millimeter lens or a wide angle lens. The exposure is going to vary a little bit, and you can dial that in on this light meter using this guy. This is the Exposure Profile Target 2 that you have to purchase separately, but I highly recommend doing that because what it allows you to do is take your camera and lens and take a few pictures of this guy, and then you import that into some software on your computer, and then it'll tell you exactly what the capabilities of your camera and lens are as far as dynamic range and exposure. Then this has a USB port on the side of the light meter. You plug this into your computer and it imports all of that data. And so you can have different camera profiles and you can access up to 3 at a time inside your meter. So if you're using different cameras, again, you can have different profiles to make sure that the metering matches your camera and lens exactly. And you can store as many of those profiles as you want on your computer, but you can only load 3 at a time on your camera. Now the thing it does is it puts there's a little bar at the bottom of this. You probably can't see it, but there's a tiny little bar, and that is the dynamic range of your camera. So then you can use this meter to meter different elements in your scene to see where they fall inside the dynamic range of your camera. You can add those to memory to see how they stack up, so you can see where your darks are, your midtones, your lights. And using this meter, you can actually execute the zone system perfectly and know exactly what your scene is going to look like before you ever take a picture. Now that takes some time to do that, but you can do that with no problem. Now this guy has an EV scale and an aperture value scale, and you can zip between those really easily by hitting mode and aperture. So that will zap you back and forth between those modes there. And if you forget how to do anything, by the way, there's a cheat sheet on the back of your meter that tells you all of that stuff. So it'll tell you how to get between the different settings, exposure compensation, camera profiling, mode changes. You can lock the jog wheel. There's all kinds of things that you can do with this guy. Not only that, but this also has not only incident metering, which is what you get with this Lumisphere, but it has reflective metering. So just by turning this, now I can look through this, and it has a little targeting reticle, and I can do some metering and use reflective metering if I'm a scenic photographer, or if I'm using the zone system and I want to really quickly look through my scene and get my darks, midtones, and brights, and then I can lock those in, set the midpoint for my middle gray, and look at that on my scale. And because I've metered and calibrated my system, I can see how those are falling and if it's going to work exactly right. It's a really powerful tool. Now this also allows you to program it. There's some custom functions. You can find those. There's a little cheat sheet that's inside here. And there are about 9 different custom functions that you can set, and those are things like the different exposure compensation settings, the half full stops, third stops, EV scale, where the midtones are, how that's set. You can flip back and forth the measure and memory button. So some people like to use this button for measure and this for memory, unless they go from incident metering to reflective metering. Then they want this to measure and this to go into memory. And so that works really good. So remember, this all has cheat sheets on the back. And so if you forget how to do any of this stuff, it's built right in. So there you have it. This is the flash meter L358. This is really terrific for people that are in the studio most of the time and aren't doing fine art photography or scenic photography. If you're doing more advanced metering, then really go with the 758DR, because it's got a lot of features that professionals really need to lock in. Again, this one's about $570. This is just over $300. So both are exceptional values, and I recommend both of them. I use both of them in the studio every single day. Well, thanks for joining us this week. Remember, if you have questions about photography or photography-related gear, you can send those to me at AskMark@Adorama.com. Thanks for joining us this week, and I'll see you next week.
This episode is brought to you by AdoramaTV. Visit the Adorama Learning Center, where you'll find photography tips and techniques, links to the gear used in this episode, and related videos. For all the latest photography, video, and computer gear, visit Adorama.com. And the next time you're in New York City, visit our store, located on 18th Street between 5th and 6th Avenue.